Assalamualaikum and welcome everyone. We are back in this enlightening series. This is the podcast of Suria KLCC and Friends ex MIASA Malaysia, and this is part of Suria KLCC's annual celebration of World Mental Health Day. I'm Anita, your host.
And Assalamu alaikum, I'm Aliza Kim. Hello, everyone. And as we
Hello,
continue
hello.
our hashtag Be
Yes.
Kind Online campaign 2024, launched in collaboration with MIASA Malaysia and other key mental health organizations, we are shifting now our focus to the equally important aspects of mental health in our workplaces. And of course, today we have the Honorable Dr. Rabindra Abeyasinghe, who is head of the WHO country office to Malaysia, Singapore, and Brunei. MashaAllah.
MashaAllah. Welcome,
MashaAllah,
Dr.
welcome.
Rabi. How
Thank
are you?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us in our campaign Be Kind Online. So, Lisa, we have been talking about cyberbullying,
Yes.
the impact of cyberbullying,
Yes,
and how to
yes.
keep spaces online safe. But we want to shift a little bit for this session and talk about mental health in the workplace.
So important, yes.
Where it begins with us. And for that, we have, of course, Dr. Rabi with us. Now, Dr. Rabi, maybe we want to begin with why is mental health in the workplace such a critical issue?
Thank you for the question, and if I may stick to your topic of cyberbullying.
Okay.
It also happens at the workplace.
Exactly.
So that's why we talk about mental health in the workplace.
That's correct.
And how important it is. I mean, mental health has become hugely important. Not that it was not important, but it's becoming increasingly important with the widespread increase of mental health challenges that we are
Correct.
seeing among larger populations and very significantly among children and adolescents,
That's
but
correct.
even among adults.
Yeah.
And post-COVID or even during COVID, this
Yeah.
was something that we saw in practically all countries.
Yes.
And coming out of COVID, we seem to be continuing with what we called the silent pandemic
Correct.
of mental health challenges.
No longer silent.
Yeah, but the only difference is that it seems to be continuing while COVID is dying out.
Yes, that is correct.
And it seems like things are even increasing. Right? The
Yes,
It
challenges
is.
are
Yes,
It has
increasing.
been.
True.
Yeah.
And so it is very good that we have this opportunity to discuss it. Mental health is critically important for WHO.
Yes.
It's part of what we call good health and well-being.
Correct.
And given the fact that 60% of our populations are engaged in some kind of work
Yeah.
in various kinds of places, and that may be in very stressful environments,
Correct.
in manufacturing plants, it may be in corporate settings, it may even be in healthcare settings.
Yes, definitely.
But it could also be in individual small holdings,
Yeah.
private companies which individuals own.
Yeah.
It could be
Anyway.
in anywhere where
Yeah.
people work.
Right.
And unfortunately, in all these settings, we're beginning to acknowledge that mental health challenges are increasing,
Yeah.
and that there is a need to acknowledge it and work towards creating a more respectful,
Yeah.
stress-free
Yeah.
environment
Yeah.
in our workplaces, not just for the welfare of the workers, but health and well-being, but also because it's closely linked with the productivity of those workplaces.
Definitely. Definitely.
And even beyond.
Yeah.
The health of workers is the mental health, especially of workers, is very closely linked with their families.
Yeah.
Workers go back to their families. They take their stress, they take their mental
Correct.
health issues back to their families,
back
right?
home, yeah.
Yeah.
So we talk about workplace-related mental health,
Right.
but for us from WHO, it's not just workplace. So it fits in to the total picture of
Right.
the need to address mental health.
Right. So what would you say, Dr. Rabi, on we'll touch on the family and the external environments and all that, but coming back to the workplace, what is the economic impact of poor mental health towards businesses specifically?
It's huge.
It's huge.
It's
yeah.
huge. We're talking of the impact to the individual who is affected,
Right.
but that it does not stop from there,
Yeah.
right? So there is the impact that it has on the individual in the fact that it prevents the individual from giving his or her best to the workplace.
Right.
But beyond that, it also has a cumulative effect because it affects the efficiency and the productivity of a workplace,
Right.
right? And therein is the economic cost
Yeah.
of workplace-related mental health issues. Estimates by WHO show that the mental health-related economic impact at a global level
Okay.
is about $1.5 trillion a year.
Wow.
Wow.
I'm not
1.5
talking
trillion US
Wow.
dollars?
US dollars.
Wow.
Wow.
That's how big it is.
Yeah.
So it's a huge factor which we
Right.
don't see. We do believe that it could be having very high impact on our workplaces here in Malaysia,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Thank
We
you very
haven't costed what it could be,
Yeah.
but
you.
it could be quite significant.
Yeah, I mean, 1.5 trillion US dollars, that's
Yeah.
significant enough, right? Elisa, I think Dr. Rabi as well, we talked a lot about absenteeism within workplaces when you're struggling with mental health. I think that's very obvious, but we also want to talk about presenteeism, right? Because I think that we see a lot of people, especially because mental health, you carry a lot of shame and fear,
Yeah.
that people continue to work in workplaces
Right.
although you're unwell, right? And then it leads to not being productive, it hurts relationships, and then like you said, the economic impact, 1.5 trillion
lot.
US dollars, that's a lot. And then
Yeah.
loss of productivity, like you mentioned, and then how it affects families, so on and so forth, Eliza.
Yeah, I think this is one of the leading into one of the questions that I have. But before that, isn't it so wonderful that we have a representation here? Malaysia, Sri
I
Lanka,
know.
Thailand, maybe America too. I can represent
Right,
that.
right.
So when we're listening to these facts from Dr. Rabi, it's
Right.
really worldwide, and
It
we're
is.
really
It's
feeling it
global
within this
stats
group
right
as well.
there. Yeah.
So my question would be: now that we know that it's such affecting such a huge amount of the world and having such a high cost as well.
Yeah.
Dr. Rabi, what do you think? Why has it taken us so long
I
to
know.
recognize this? Why is it still slow for some employers?
Despite the pandemic
Yes.
as well, right?
Yeah, why is it still slow for some of the employers also to really take it seriously and take their employees seriously when they come out and say, hey, I have a mental health issue?
Right. But that also goes to show how prevalent stigma is, right? Or how
Well-
thick it is.
Well, the issue
Yeah.
is there that many people who are affected by mental health conditions don't own up to it. They don't share it with their colleagues.
Shame.
They don't share it with their bosses. So oftentimes, your colleagues or your bosses at the workplace are unable to recognize it, are unable to attribute why your performance is falling down,
Yeah.
right? Are unable to understand why you're present but you're not producing
Yeah.
the way you used to.
Right.
And this is intricately linked with the shame and the stigma that our societies have had over the years
Yeah.
linked to mental health conditions. And we are working to say that mental health is like any other physical health issue.
Correct.
It is something that needs to be acknowledged, it's something that needs to be addressed, and it needs to be recognized by anybody, right? So if you have a fever, you would recognize it. Your colleagues would help you recognize it,
Yes.
right? And they would step in, say, you need to take this, you need to do that, you
Right.
need to rest. But if you have mental health conditions, at the beginning they are mild, but nobody picks them up, right? And they could be manifesting in the fact that you're saying you're tired throughout the day,
Yeah.
you're having somatic symptoms like
Yes.
headaches,
Correct.
etc., etc. And nobody would recognize them unless they're specially trained
Yeah.
to do that
Yeah.
as linked to mental health. And that's why we believe and we say that the most important thing in addressing the challenge of mental health is the fact of addressing the shame and the stigma, right? Because if we can break that down, if we can have a general acceptance that I don't discriminate you if you have a fever, I don't look at you in a strange way if you have a cold,
Yeah.
right? Why should I do that because you have a mental health condition,
Correct.
right? So if we can create that kind of atmosphere that is respectful, that is conducive, we could then have people owning up to the fact that I am stressed, I am depressed, I'm affected by this. And that creates then the environment for their own admission, but also their colleagues and their bosses to create an enabling environment for them to de-stress, to get away from that situation and overcome that situation, right? So one thing is talking about the fact that this is like any other somatic disease. But the second thing is also about equipping people to be able to recognize, right? The early signs, what is it? And that's why we say when we see this increasing trend in kids and adolescents, it's critically important that parents, teachers are able to pick those early signs.
Yeah.
Why is this child suddenly withdrawing,
Yeah.
not engaging, right? It's the same at a workplace. If you have that capacity, if you have the capacity, and everybody doesn't need to be a doctor to do this,
Yes.
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
We have all the tools which equip people to acquire those basic skills,
Yeah.
acquire the basic competencies for counseling, to give a listening ear, which goes a long way to de-stress people. Then we create that enabling environment in the workplaces. So it's about how we come together as a community,
Yeah.
as families, as countries, to work together towards addressing this issue.
Right. I think there's still a lot of shame,
Yeah.
Aliza, right? A lot of shame. People still fear to talk about it openly. The stigma prevents people really from being open about their challenges, like what Dr.
Yeah.
Rabi, like what you mentioned, because when it's a physical health, people are okay and people are supportive of it, right? If you need help and support, so on and so forth. But when it comes to a mental health condition, you get shamed because of it as well, and people
Right.
don't want to be friends with you. People judge you, and I think that becomes very difficult and harmful to someone's recovery process as well. Now that's the normal people, Aliza, right?
Yeah.
What about, Dr. Rabi, people with disabilities, right? Now you have, a certain type of disability, and then you are more susceptible to a mental health condition. So what can workplaces do more to be more inclusive? Because at this current moment, truth be told, we're not very inclusive, Dr. Rabi.
No, unfortunately, that's
Yeah.
a huge issue.
Yes.
We're still faced with the challenge that disabled people are not able to consider themselves as part of the mainstream community. And that's through no fault of theirs.
Exactly.
Right?
Right.
So how do we work to help them feel that they are part of our communities, they are
Right.
part of our workplaces?
Correct.
We know that it's tremendously difficult for disabled people to secure employments, right? But when they do, they again have this barrier that people look at them strangely, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Then we have the challenge that they cannot access workspaces. They are not recognized for their special needs.
People don't even want to hire them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and then even after they are hired, there's all these other issues that help to add on to the stress and the mental health challenges they face because they are disabled.
Correct.
And it contributes to worsening that situation.
Definitely.
Yeah?
And
So that's why it's important to know that this is not, mental health challenges are not just a problem for able people.
Yes.
It affects everybody, and particularly the disabled people.
Correct.
right?
Exactly.
So it is about having that understanding and that compassion so that we can help them feel more included.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I think it's this point is just so important because it's not just only the I like to call them differently abled
Yeah.
instead of disabled. I like to call them differently abled. And people with mental illness or mental health issues are also differently abled. It's not really just only them wanting to or not knowing how to speak up, but when they want to speak up, they're not sure how to word it, they don't feel safe. So probably employers would have some role in that as well. And I know that MIASA does circle time in some corporations, and I'm also involved with coaching in some organizations as well. So being able to craft these safe spaces is a start.
It is.
But what about governments? In this episode is called It Begins With Us. Of course, there's an element of the individual, having a say in the workplace mental health community. But what about governments? What would you have to say about that, Dr. Rabi? Actually, two parts. The individual first in the workplace and contributing to the mental health scene, and also the government. Thank you.
Thank you. As we already started discussing, it needs to start with us, with each of us as individuals, right? If we can create that inclusive environment, if we can create that understanding and compassion that they require, we are already creating an environment where we can help them overcome their early mental health issues. But there's also the need, not just for us as individuals, right? There's also the need for us as co-workers, as staff associations, as unions, to work towards the welfare of their membership by creating that environment. So we often look at management, we look at governments and say they need to do A, B, and C, right? And that's fair enough. But then it also needs to be us also. We also have a responsibility. We are co-stakeholders in this.
Yes,
Do
we
we
are.
create a respectable work environment,
Correct.
right? Do we create the conditions that staff feel confident enough to say, I am stressed, I am depressed, I am anxious,
Right.
because of A, B, or C? And do we have the support that we can provide? Do we know where to refer them, where to
Right.
Yeah.
send them to, so that they feel that their needs are being addressed? And of course, you have to look at specific work environments, right? Are the work conditions conducive to good mental health,
Yeah.
right?
Usually
Do-
no.
Yeah.
Usually no.
But it's not in every workplace. And I'm happy to say more and more workplaces are actually
Becoming aware, yeah.
becoming aware
They
of
are.
this. They are looking at it from multiple angles. They are looking at it from their staff welfare. They are looking at it from their productivity, their profit, whatever. But it's a good thing that they are acknowledging that they need to work around this.
Yeah.
And the starting place is that once you have that understanding, then you create the environment, you create the respectable work environment. You look for situations that are stressing your workers. You need to find how do you de-stress that.
Right.
What is the environment you need to create so that they can cope with the stressors they're dealing with, right? So that's part of the management. But it needs to go beyond that,
Yes.
Right.
because as governments, we also need, unfortunately, sometimes legislations.
Yeah, definitely.
We can't expect people to do things just on their own initiative.
Yeah.
So, in the big world out there, governments have a responsibility to ensure that the legislation is there, the industrial and labor laws are there,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
make sure that business owners create the environments to have a healthy, stress-free work environment. At the same time, it should also be that there is rules so that co-workers respect each other.
Yeah.
And
So does the WHO have or plan to have some kind of baseline guideline for governments? Because sometimes we can talk about this a lot, and maybe from the bottom up there's a need, but some governments, they have different levels of understanding, and companies are also all over the place. So as a worldwide standard, does the WHO have any plans or have anything already in place?
we do prescribe what should be there, but actual workplace legislations are more the ILO's, International Labour Organization's
see.
core area.
Yeah.
But we do work with them on helping them to formulate
Yeah.
the necessary guidelines and
Yeah.
standards.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. Rabi. I think that's very interesting when we talk about workplaces, because we want to, as much as possible, Dr. Rabi, Aliza, to create a workplace that is inclusive. It's also safe, and then it's accessible to everyone when it comes to mental health support services. Because I remember, Dr. Rabi, when Sarah Minkara came to Malaysia, I think this was 2 years ago, and she spoke about, Aliza, the history of curb cuts, you know?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
I remember when curb cuts was first created, it was actually created for people with wheelchairs, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then what happened was then the elderlies with shopping carts could use it.
Right.
And then parents with younger children
The
with
strollers,
strollers
yes.
could use it as well. And then what happened was then you realize when you make things more accessible, everyone wins, right? Because
Yep.
when you make spaces more inclusive, more accessible, then everyone actually benefits. And I think that's really a huge point that we want to bring about as well. Now, coming back to the legislation, Dr. Rabi, when we talk about workplaces, I think if we can enforce what is being lined out in UNCRPD, then as much as possible we can make places more inclusive, right? Because I think in UNCRPD it covers it really well, where you have reasonable accommodations across, right?
Right.
But the only thing with Malaysia, we don't enforce it, and so people don't really follow the convention as much as possible. And I really like that WHO is present in Malaysia, because WHO, Aliza, works as a guide or a guidance for the government as well, and WHO helps to advise. Yeah, so hopefully through conversations like today we can all do better.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Yeah. And that's why we have this year's World Mental Health
Yes.
Day themed around mental health at the workplace.
Correct. Yes.
Right? Where we are working with the government to acknowledge that. We had an event at the Ministry of Health last
Yes.
week where the focus was on the workplace in the Ministry of Health, and also the need for other employers to focus on good mental health,
Right.
creating the conditions and the environments in workplaces
Right.
in all establishments,
Right.
big and small.
Right. And I think what we've seen as well via the pandemic is workplaces are more aware. Hence,
Yes.
they have been, as an example, engaging with us at MIASA, where we come in through the Employee Assistance Program. So we've got, mental health assessment in workplaces, counseling sessions, therapy, and like what you mentioned, circle time as
Right.
well. But Dr. Rabi, what can maybe employees do to take better care of their mental health?
Well, there's many things that employees could do, but that depends on what their employment is, in what conditions are they working.
Right.
But it's also important for them to realize that these are my capacities. This is how much I need to work. But the problem with today's world is that there is an information overload.
Information over with social
We're
media
talking
and
social
everything
media
else.
and all of
Yeah.
that. And so people sometimes don't get enough time to rest,
Yes.
to regain their strength, and it's important for people to take the time to be aware of that, to focus on that,
Yeah.
and to do that so that they have the opportunity to de-stress. And it's easier said than done,
Yes.
because stresses are interlinked, right?
Yeah.
You are stressed at work, you go home, your productivity has gone down, your earning potential has gone down, so you have stresses at home,
Yeah.
and it's all linked. But it's still important for us to have that capacity, for people to have the capacity to step back and say, look, I'm in a vicious cycle,
Yeah.
I need to take a break, I need to recuperate, I need to get my strength back, otherwise this is going to become worse,
Yeah.
right? And that awareness is also important.
Yeah.
Dr. Rabi, on the other side of this, what advice would you give to employers when their employee comes to them and tells them, I think I'm feeling burnt out, something is going on with my mental health? For the employer not to feel like, oh no, this employee has become a burden on me, this employee can no longer give me what I want, but rather shift to seeing, okay, this employee is still valuable, but they need a little bit of help.
Yeah.
What would be your
And
advice?
a little bit of time as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that also comes with understanding, right?
Yes.
The employers, the managers need to understand what is mental health challenge, right? What are the signs?
Yeah.
They shouldn't actually be waiting for the employees to come and tell them that. If they are equipped with it, the capacities, they should be able to pick it, right? Proactively, and take steps accordingly,
Yeah.
right? Because everybody's thresholds are very different.
Very.
So there may be people who don't find it stressful, who can manage, but there may be the individual who needs a different environment, who needs some time off, who needs a slowing of the pace. And managers need to be able to detect that. But if that's not happened and the individual comes to you and says that, then the managers need to have the understanding that this person needs support. And that
Yes.
support may be, does the workplace have connections to a mental health consultant who can help the person, a counselor who can help the person? Is there somebody I can refer the worker to, right? And if that is there, that access should be provided. So it should not be, oh no, you have to work till you finish this project and then you can sort of take that break.
Right.
Because
I think it would be interesting, Lisa, to hear what Dr. Rabi does to take care of his
That's true.
mental health.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yes, please share with us.
I enjoy what I do, so
I
Not
enjoy
just
what
stress.
I do as well, but I still need time out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
But what do you
switch
do?
off
What's your passion other than work?
other than work, I love music, I love reading.
Music. Do you play any instruments?
Unfortunately not.
Okay. You sing.
I'm blessed with the capacity to enjoy music, but not to make music.
Okay. I can relate. Sports? Do you play sports?
I used to
Used to?
in my younger days.
Younger days.
Yeah.
Okay.
I-
So you don't resort to sports, like not necessary sports, like maybe brisk walking.
That's not sports. That's
not sport.
exercise.
Oh, the exercise. Okay.
That's a regular
Sorry.
day-to-day
Exercise.
thing.
You do that
Every day.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
Good.
Yeah.
And then I think, Doctor, you were saying that you like to read.
Yes.
Oh yeah, reading.
Yeah.
Reading a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, this is very good as well.
Non-fiction, fiction,
Fiction.
fiction. Oh,
I need to get away from the reality.
I know. I know. That's the thing.
A little
with
bit of
me.
an escape, right? A little
Yeah,
bit of
I mean,
escape.
I love reading, but since I venture into mental health, Dr. Rabi, I have not read fiction.
But that's a great getaway, right?
It is. It is.
I
Okay,
watch
Dr.
kitten videos. You can do that too. It's very relaxing.
Okay, maybe I should venture out. Dr. Rabi, maybe a little bit. We want to tap on some of your experiences outside of Malaysia. Okay, so we know you've been here maybe 2.5 years. About okay.
That's about.
So before this, you were in Philippines. Maybe how different is the progress in Philippines when it comes to mental health, maybe support services or awareness level, as compared to Malaysia? A lot of people say it's kind of similar, but maybe from your
Well, from a socio-cultural perspective, you're quite similar, but there is a fundamental difference that the access to community-based mental health services and
Is better.
support is increasingly better in the
in
Philippines.
Philippines. Yeah.
And that's because we were, during my time also, we were doing a lot to increase the community capacities,
Right.
to use the WHO tools to adapt them to the local languages
Okay.
and,
is this quality rights?
quality
Quality
rights,
rights.
yeah,
Okay.
and MHGAP.
MHGAP.
So all these tools are available. They need to be adapted to the local
Local
languages,
context, yeah.
the local cultural context,
Yeah.
and that's what we are now trying to embark on here in Malaysia.
Yeah.
But also importantly, not just equipping the health workers, but also looking at taking it beyond the health workers.
Yes.
Right. So the
Community.
communities, the leaders of the
Yeah.
communities, the teachers, the workplace managers,
Correct.
because if you can do that kind of awareness and capacity building, you find that there's a lot more early detection of problems.
Yes, definitely.
When it's much easier to mitigate,
Yeah.
when you have much faster and better outcomes.
Okay.
Right.
So having said that, now that you're here in Malaysia and looking at the situation in Malaysia now, when it comes to the gaps, what can we do? What can Malaysia do right now, Dr. Rabi, with immediate effect to get maximum impact for mental health? What would you say?
Well, there's no quick fix to this.
No quick fix at all.
You have to recognize
Yes.
that it is a long.
It is
Mm.
definitely
True.
It requires commitment.
Right.
It requires resources,
right.
and so that I think the Ministry of Health is providing the leadership. But I think it's not just the Ministry of Health. Importantly, the Ministry of Community Welfare
Right.
and Women is also
Interministerial.
playing a role. They have also started developing counselors and
Yes.
support staff. So
Correct.
these are all steps in the right direction, but there needs to be a tremendous scaling up,
Yeah.
and that's going
Yes.
to take time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what can we prioritize maybe right now?
I think the prioritization needs to be twofold, given
Twofold,
what we
okay.
are talking of today.
Okay.
It is about creating the knowledge hub, the base, the training materials,
Okay.
so that we can make them widely accessible.
Mm-hmm.
And not just depend on formal trainings, because in today's world
Yeah.
you can do a lot through the internet.
Yeah.
So if you have, there would be many volunteers who would want to equip themselves and acquire the skills and the capacities.
Yeah.
So having those training materials accessible in local languages
Right.
would, we believe, go a long way. But then also looking specifically at what is the access people have to mental health services. How can we expand that, right?
Yes. Yes.
Malaysia has a pilot they're doing with what they call the Mentari.
Mentari, yeah.
But that needs to be expanded significantly, right?
Definitely.
We have just a few places right now. I
Yeah.
think it's 16 or some
22, yeah.
22.
Yeah.
So it needs significant expansion.
Yes. I
Given
agree.
The huge
Yeah.
terrain and the
Definitely.
complexity of
Yeah.
accessing areas, and this is not an urban problem.
Right.
It's
It's
not
not.
a rural problem.
Right.
It's
No.
everywhere.
Everywhere
right?
problem.
Yes.
Yes.
So it's very much part of WHO's push for strengthening universal health care.
Yes.
Mental health is an
Part of it.
integral
Yeah.
component
Yeah.
of that, and so we are talking of universal access to mental health care services.
MashaAllah. This
Yeah,
is very
awesome.
good. Yeah.
I think maybe one of the ways now, like you said, is not just the reliance on the health sector alone, but maybe task shifting it to the community where we can empower the community, right, Eliza? And
Yep.
this is exactly what all of us are trying to do. We are providing our volunteers, our first responders,
That's
a little
right.
bit of training, right? Because not everyone needs clinical help. Once again, right? Maybe if you just have a safe space, like right now where we're at,
That's right.
Suria KLCC, where people can just come in and talk to someone, right?
Yeah.
Where they can unleash whatever that's bothering that in itself can prevent someone from falling into depression, anxiety,
Exactly.
Dr. Rabi, right?
And I
So
think
this-
the people that are coming out with lived experience also
Yeah.
is helping a lot.
A lot.
Because
It's
then
paving
people are
way.
feeling like, oh, I'm not alone. Oh, maybe I can share too. Maybe I
Right.
can open up too.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this is very helpful because, both of us, we're people with lived experience,
That's right.
So the moment we're more open, we feel braver to reach out. I mean, not to reach out, to open up. We really encourage those of you who are going through, mental health struggles, because really, guys, we don't know from other people listening to our story might provide that key to unlock someone else's struggle, Eliza.
That's
and that
right.
is, and also providing inspiration as well, right? So that people feel braver. Okay, if Eliza can do this, then I can too. kind of
Yes,
thing,
yes.
yeah?
I just wanted to give your hotline number.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so if anyone needs to talk, you're able to reach 24/7 crisis helpline at 1-800-1800-66.
That is MIASA Malaysia's helpline number. So
Yeah.
we work across the nation. We've trained about 250 volunteers, and we
Excellent,
have
yeah.
about 2,010 volunteers across the nation. And we also have Ministry of Health's helpline number as well, which is Talian Heal 1555, and of course Talian Kasih 15999.
Yep.
So if you guys are struggling, please reach out. You're definitely not alone. 3 of us here are here to help you.
That's right.
That's right. And of course, the many NGOs and of course, mental health professionals, health professionals that are out there. And of course, our first responders and also volunteers, crisis team responders that are ready to help you if you are struggling and in need of help and support, inshallah. Okay. So I think, Aliza, anything else? Maybe last words from Dr. Rabi before we
No, I mean,
close?
again, talking about it is important, and so
Yes.
I want to thank you for this opportunity
Thank you very much, Dr.
Thank you.
Rabi.
to make people aware that this is not something that you need to be shy, you need to hide,
Correct.
That's
you
right.
need to live with. There are solutions, it can be addressed. You are very normal if you're mentally stressed.
Definitely.
So don't feel that you're unique, that you have a particular problem that needs to be hidden,
Yes.
Yes.
but be open about it. Know that there is help out there. Seek the help and get over this issue because it is easily doable, and then you can get back to your normal self. But most importantly, even if you don't have mental health issues, take time to rest.
Yes.
Stay healthy.
So
Yes.
Exercise physically.
Yes.
All of
Exercise,
that
guys.
contributes to you having better mental health.
Yes.
Yes.
Very much.
Was it
Okay.
sun, air, water, rest?
Yes.
Yeah?
That is. Aliza, maybe one tip from you. What do you do for your mental health?
One tip from me. Okay, so I love the morning air.
I do too.
I love the morning air, and I've just learned that first light,
yes.
that light, just the first light that comes at dawn, has no UVA, no UVB. So hijabis, go out and get your sun.
I
Please.
know.
Yeah, go out, walk, get the morning air that is so fresh, and that early morning sunlight, which resets your circadian clock as well. It's
Yes.
so beneficial, and it gives you so much energy, and also affects your serotonin and all of the other brain chemicals.
It
Yeah,
uses
so I
lots of
love
that, loads
the
of
morning.
that naturally. Okay, guys.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you so much, Aliza.
How
for
about
being
you?
with us.
Wait. How about you?
I do lots of things.
One.
One exercise, of course. Brisk walk or jog.
Okay, I'm
helps
still
a lot.
working on the exercise.
Yeah, but really talk to someone. I think I talk a lot to my husband and kids. Very helpful, or friends that you trust. Most importantly, okay, don't speak to just anyone.
That's
But
right.
someone that you trust. Okay,
Yes.
folks. All right, I think we are done.
Yes.
Very, very happy to be with Dr. Rabindra.
Wait. Dr. Rabindra Abeyasinghe.
Yes,
Ah.
Dr. Rabindra
Abeyasinghe.
See, I told you. No. Okay, Dr. Rabi. Thank you so much, Dr. Rabi, head of WHO for Malaysia, Singapore, and Brunei Darussalam. It was a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for your insights. And
presence.
hopefully together we can do more.
Yes,
Yeah?
and remember this is part of the hashtag Be Kind Online
Yes.
campaign 2024. So let's extend kindness to our work environments, both physical and digital.
Yes. So, folks, remember, be kind online and also be kind in person. I'm Anita signing off.
And I'm Elisa Kim.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.